Let me teach you how to get more gains from dumbbell pressing. So to get started, you gotta stop flaring your elbows out 90 degrees to the side doing fucking half reps. As the Hodgkins would say, it's a one-way ticket to Snap City, and it's not doing you any favors, my friend. You may think that you're getting better activation of the shoulders or the pecs, but really, you're just internally rotating, causing damage in the long run. So there's a very simple solution for this. Instead of trying to mimic a guillotine press, bring your elbows in a little bit, the same that you would do on a flat barbell bench press. This is the real reason why you get shoulder pain when you do full range of motion. It's not that your tissues can't handle it. It's not that full range is bad. In fact, that's the proper way to do it, in my opinion, to prevent long-term injuries. The real reason you've been struggling up until this point is a bad form. Copying bodybuilders online who are notorious for doing half reps with bulky ass dumbbells. And that's another point to consider. As the number increases, so does the size of the dumbbells, which means it's becoming more of a partial rep. So when you do those half reps, when you get very strong, eventually you're doing quarter reps. And that explains why there are many people who have great numbers on dumbbell press, but yet when they go to barbell, they're weak as hell. Why? Because they're not practicing full range of motion. So it starts with that. That's the number one thing. If you want more range of motion, you can always use a neutral grip. This will also have other benefits in the way that you're manipulating the joint angles. You might find it to be much more difficult at the bottom and lockout, while hammering the triceps a little bit harder as well. And for those who really have sensitive shoulders, this should be a nice little solution. So my advice would not be to use a wider grip necessarily, which could be done even with the elbow tuck, since that could be a little bit more strenuous on the shoulders. Instead, I would just tell you to use a neutral grip, which again provides the extra range of motion benefits while assisting in tricep development. And you can use this for all presses, by the way. Flat, shoulder press, incline, you can't go wrong. Now, besides the whole form thing, I would also invite you to start utilizing pause repetitions. This is extremely common on the flat barbell bench press, but very few lifters perform it on dumbbell pressing. Why? Because they just haven't been taught to. It's a cultural thing. So I'm saying to break the norm. If we know that pause reps work on most effective compound movements, why would it not apply to the dumbbell work? Why? Because it's an accessory? Nah, bro. Let's escape dogmatic thinking. Let's just do what works. And pause reps do work. And it'll allow you to get more out of less weight. This is especially beneficial if the dumbbell rack doesn't go that heavy, maybe 70, 100 pounds max. Well, in that case, you can always emphasize the inclines and the shoulder presses, but if you want to do some flat benching or any other movement to really emphasize the chest, well, pause reps are very beneficial. And you can use it for high reps as well. So I'll give you a nice little example. If you can press the 120s for reps, drop it down to 100 and do some pause repetitions. And you might find that you're in a similar range. So that's what I mean by getting more out of less weight. And you can do pauses for all the variations. Shoulder press, incline, flat, everything. And on that note, I would also tell you to do some floor pressing. Very underrated exercise, but it breaks up the eccentric concentric chain. And also it's great for guys who tend to have shoulder pain. So we're really attacking things from all angles here, but I would strongly recommend that you start doing some pause reps, not only for low repetitions, but also high rep stuff. It really will make a difference in how the exercise feels. Oh yeah, another thing about the form, when you're doing shoulder presses, don't lean too far back into the pads, okay? Otherwise, it becomes a high incline. So you can either make your body very upright, which solves the problem, or you can remove the backpack completely. This might actually allow for greater scapular stability, but less overall body stability. So it depends what you want to do here. And then for inclines, don't raise it too high. I recommend using the lowest possible setting, okay? Otherwise, it becomes more of a shoulder press. So you have the inverse problem here. Another crazy method is the concept of training each arm independently. What I mean is, you could do standing overhead presses, one arm at a time, or seated. Same thing for the flat bench, one arm at a time. This is fantastic because it's a lot more difficult. It's great for combat and field athletes alike. Has great carryover to your standard dumbbell pressing, overrides biological law of accommodation, hits the core a little bit hard as well. You'll also discover if weaknesses are apparent. So if you do 95 for reps on the right arm and the left is only 90, well, now you know that there's something incorrect. And that might be reflective in your arm size, even your shoulder size. So it gives you better insight as to what the real weaknesses are. And that's why I recommend it. It's another way of getting results. It absolutely works, time tested as fuck. A lot of the old school strongmen used to do this. Probably my favorite is the one arm shoulder press, standing up. But you can do it on flat benching too, and a bunch of different exercises. So I highly recommend it. And the final thing I would tell you to do is to wear equipment when performing dumbbell presses. Now, one thing you could try is the slingshot for dumbbell pressing. I don't do this a lot myself, but Steve Shaw has mastered this exercise. So it's very good for taking strain off the shoulders and allows you to overload as well. And it teaches you the proper form that I talked about at the beginning of this video. So you're really going to reinforce the elbow tuck and upper back tightness. You'll be touching your chest every single time. You'll be able to lift heavier. So at the top, you really overload those tris as well. And ultimately, you can't go wrong with it because it has great carry over the standard dumbbell and barbell presses. So it's another fantastic accessory, great to do if you feel a little bit banged up, if you just want to overload, and it's something that you can consider, and you can use a neutral grip for this as well. And then also consider wearing wrist wraps when using dumbbells that go above 100 pounds. What I noticed is that they tend to be a little bit more flimsy, especially the old school ones. So it depends what gym you're going to, but when you have a lot of those plates added up on the sides, especially if they're really old and people don't use them that much, they tend to rattle on your hands and like move a little bit. So it's kind of like a crazy bell in a sense, right? So the wrist wraps will keep you a lot more stable. That's probably the number one thing I could recommend you wear when doing heavy dumbbell presses. You don't want your wrist bending around either, okay? And then obviously the other stuff is optional, but you can actually wear a belt and even freaking elbow sleeves. So that's it, everybody. Those are my major tips for dumbbell pressing. I really hope it helps you out. Let me know if you want more content like this and if you want additional tips for these exercises.